Welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. Today we're here to talk about the direction that GW is taking with the new edition of Horus Heresy. Predominantly I want to talk about unit stats, how Legion's special rules are encouraging narrative play, and a look at reactions. But first a quick mention about leaks and playtest rules. If you're keen to check out some of the leaks that are going around, I've included a link below to a few unit entries that are doing the rounds. I'm not going to focus on any specific leaked entries and rules on this channel for a few reasons. The main reason is that the leaks we're seeing are playtesting rules. The last thing I want to do is create confusion with these videos once the final rules are released, both for viewers and for myself. So I'm focusing today's video towards the general direction that GW is taking the Horus Heresy rule set and the impact that's going to have on our game system. Let's talk about updates we're seeing to unit statistics. One big thing that we're all tracking by now is the introduction of wounds for dreadnoughts. I like this. It's endlessly frustrating having close combat orientated vehicles that opponents can't really interact with. Dreadnoughts with facings also doesn't really make sense and more so creates those awkward close combat situations regarding model placement. Wounds make things a lot simpler for a unit that wants to be in the thick of it, punching away with their giant metal fists of furies. I'm a big fan of dreadnoughts with wounds in 40k 9th edition, and I think it works. But I'm also happy to see more mainstream tanks keeping their armor values and facings. Thank goodness. On the flip side, I am a bit worried about the number of wounds that we're seeing in the leaked rule set. 6 wounds doesn't sound like a lot, though it will also come down to weapon stats. At this stage, I don't believe we're seeing multi-damage weapons in Horus Heresy, so 6 wounds may indeed be sufficient and feel meaty enough for a giant death-dealing battle coffin. We're also seeing leaks of elite Astartes units with 2 wounds, and not just Terminators. We're seeing a bunch of Legion-specific units, both in Artificer and Power Armor, with 2 wounds. I really like this, as a way to keep those special units on the table and to remove some variance from the game. There's nothing worse than seeing your 300-point unit of fancy boys drop to a bunch of bolter shots when you roll too many ones on your armor saves. Just doesn't feel great. Giving those Legion-specific elite units a couple of wounds makes sure they stick around to have an impact on the game, and also rewards players for playing to the narrative of their legions. Next up, I'm keen to talk about the leaked army special rules. One of the things we've seen in the leaked playtest material is the army special rules for the legions. Each legion gets some pretty tasty stuff that, for the most part, really hits home for that legion's lore and makes them a bunch of fun to play. As you would expect, we're going to get the following: unique legion army-wide special rules, legion warlord traits, rights of war for loyalists and traders when relevant, legion HQ options for consoles or praetors linked to the legion's specialization. We're going to see legion-specific war gear, legion special characters, and unique legion advanced reactions. More on these later. So, plenty to immerse yourself into your chosen legion's way of waging post-human on post-human war. In particular, I'm really impressed with the special rules we're seeing that impact and influence victory points, rewarding players for immersing themselves into a legion or a character's narrative. A great example is what we've seen for Sol Tarvitz, one of the Emperor's Children's loyalist characters, the only one, I dare say, who gets bonus victory points for killing Emperor's Children independent characters, and even more victory points if he manages to slay Lucius. Narrative-driven concepts worked into the victory point system makes for a lot of fun on the tabletop. Let's hope these ideas stick around in the final rule set. Horus Heresy has always been first and foremost about telling the amazing stories of Horus's betrayal on the tabletop. This edition looks to be doubling down on mechanics to ensure that narrative-based gaming remains at the forefront of players' minds, and I'm really excited about it. Lastly, let's discuss reactions. Reactions are one of the big new mechanics we're going to see in Horus Heresy 2.0 to differentiate it from its previous edition. It looks like we're getting core reactions and Legion-specific advanced reactions. Players have reaction points that are gained and spent throughout the game, much like we see command points used on stratagems in 40k 9th edition. Reactions, however, seem far more streamlined and restricted in their use than the hundreds of various 40k stratagems. I can only see this as a positive thing. It allows for player engagement during each other's turn, but doesn't result in pausing the game for players to search through multiple books to find various and often obtuse interactions. Most, if not all, of the Legion-specific advanced reactions that we've seen leaked are actually once per game situations, with a few characters and some special rules increasing that access. The advanced reactions further bring out the flavour of each Legion in a way that would be too powerful were the interactions available outside a once per game situation. It's a mechanic that is also forgiving to newer or less experienced players, giving them a get out of jail free card when they've potentially put an important unit in an awkward position. Likewise, skilled players will be aware of the various reactions of different legions and gain an advantage through taking them into consideration when taking their turns. It adds another element of on-the-table decision-making to a game that has, historically, been chiefly about target prioritization, which I see as another positive. Some examples of reactions that we've seen leaked include making units tougher when they're shot at, charging a unit into combat in an opponent's shooting phase, choosing a unit to shoot before being shot at, or countercharging an opponent's unit in their own assault phase. I've not yet seen anything overly obnoxious, but a reminder that I'm only looking at playtest rules. So, all in all, I am cautiously optimistic about reactions. The key will be, as with any army-specific rules, balancing them and making the interactions interesting rather than overbearing. But I do welcome fresh mechanics that add something to a game system that is essentially now 8 years old. And that brings us to the end of our Heresy chats for today. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to keep rolling dice and getting hyped for Heresy.